Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
I'm going to be talking about Ed Kemper, also known as the Co-Ed Killer. He was active in 1972 to 1973, with also committing a murder once before that. That was not part of his serial murdering. It was of his grandparents in 1964, I believe. I'm a little too lazy to go and fact check that at the moment, but you can if you like. And this is going to be an interview of his from 1981. If you don't know much about Ed Kemper, he was a big guy, like 6'9", just a big dude. And he was also depicted in the Mindhunters TV series. And they did a phenomenal job of finding someone who looked like and could match the tone and cadence of this man. Very intelligent, well-spoken, but also very just cold and terrifying. But yeah, we're going to just jump straight into this. I don't think I've seen this interview before. I've seen one of his, but it wasn't from this year. So I'm a little curious as to what is going to be said. It's only 6 minutes, but
I'm an American, and I went off the deep end.
Ed Kemper has been serving a life sentence in this California prison since 1973, when, at the age of 24, he murdered his mother, then called police and confessed to having dismembered college co-eds for 2 years, as well as cannibalizing and raping their headless bodies.
When someone abandons himself to being a victim, he's going to have to be one.
With an IQ of 136, Kemper is now the prison's best reader of books for the blind.
I'm saying I've wanted to kill my mother since I was 8 years old, and I'm not proud of that. It started with surrogates at a non-human level. Physical objects, my possessions, other people's, destruction of things that are cared about. And then destruction of things that are living on a lower level, small animals, insects, animals, and then finally people.
That's wild to me that he's able to have this life in jail. And don't get me wrong, I believe that he asked for the death penalty. Asked. S-K-A-S-K-E-D. Asked. I did not say axed. I'm pretty sure he asked for the death penalty, but it was not, capital punishment was not available in California during the time that he got arrested. So he just ended up serving 8 consecutive life sentences. And I think it's pretty messed up. You know, he goes in there and they're like, you're pretty smart. Let's let you read books for the blind and do interviews and do all this stuff. And it's like, he confessed to the murders himself. He could have kept going if he wanted to, but decided, nah, I'm going to stop. And then he turned himself in. So this man gets to live the rest of his life after the crimes that he committed in an environment that he chose to go to under conditions that aren't worse than that of like people living in poverty. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just wild that things can end up that way. It's like he didn't even lose, really. You know what I'm saying? He still gets to eat and live and experience things. And it's just like, it's messed up. If you ask me, it's pretty messed up. But let's keep going.
It started coming to a head again, so I went back down. I ran away back down there. And then a month later, I'm up living with my grandparents in the mountains, and 10 months later, I murdered them. It made it worse to be on top of a mountain. I was literally on top of a mountain when it happened. And I sensed everybody in the world just stopping what they were doing, turning around, saw what I did, and are coming to get me. And I knew I was paranoid at that moment. I knew anybody that came up there and gave me a funny look or a fishy eye or quizzical look, I'd have blown their brains out thinking they were coming to get me. And if it had been in a city, I would have been a mass murderer at age 15. I would have killed until they gunned me down. I wouldn't have been able to reason my way out of it. I was scared to death, and I was violent. I felt my back hit that wall. I was the rabbit that always ran, that always backed away, always burned his bridges. And suddenly there weren't any more, and my back hit that wall, and I came out screaming and kicking and shooting.
He was released to the one person that authorities at the state mental hospital recommended he never see again.
I got paroled to my mother. Atascadero decided that I didn't never need to talk to her again at all. Don't give her a Christmas present. Leave her alone. She got her pound of flesh out of you. I wasn't sniveling about my mother to them. I didn't like to hear what they had to say about her. She went through 3 husbands like a hot knife through butter. 4 months after I was out.
this is an important lesson that I've talked about before in the past on TikTok. But the relationship that I had with my mother was also kind of volatile. It wasn't, serial killer level of volatile, but it was bad, right? But this man, it just comes to show, and this is an extreme example, obviously, but the effects that your parents have on your life is so extreme that this man, gets rid of his mom, she is one of his many victims and does horrible things, to her. And then after all the things he's done to multiple people, including his mother, he goes to jail, is doing interviews, and you can just still hear the resentment and anger like bubbling up. Like he's just, and that's the effect that not only just your parents, but that you can have on other people with your actions. You know what I'm saying? And yes, there is a level of responsibility that you have to yourself to get over those things and live the best life that you can and understand that they're all part of your past. But that doesn't change the fact that like the actions of other people, especially the people who are supposed to be your caregivers and the ones that take care of you, are like the effect that it has on you when those people don't uphold their responsibilities, Yeah, just ranting.
I was back into the fantasy bag. My first date was an absolute disaster. Wasn't her fault, and I didn't blame her even then. I'm saying it was a terrible tragedy, but boy, she didn't ever talk to me again. It was awful. It wasn't sexual or grabbing at her, and I was just such a dork, taking her to a John Wayne movie and Denny's. It's terrible. I'd never been on a date. At 16, that was cool, I'd never been on a date, I was locked up since I was 15. But I can't tell her that. Oh, gee, don't mind me. She kind of got hung up on my looks or whatever. She's a gorgeous young lady, pure class, and she saw something there that I guess wasn't there, and boy, she found out quick.
Taking elaborate precautions, he drove around universities and picked up hitchhiking co-eds while wearing these glasses.
Yeah. These are the ones. Now, would you get in the car with this man? Huh? The state has made me much more credible as a human being.
While his mother worked at the university, Kemper buried the mutilated bodies in the mountains and took the severed heads home. Then he slept with their heads for days and finally went looking for more.
But I was losing a grasp on something that was too violent to keep inside forever. As I'm sitting there with a severed head in my hand, talking to it, or looking at it, and I'm about to go crazy, literally. I'm about to go completely flywheel loose and just fall apart. I say, wow, this is insane. And then I told myself, no, it isn't. You're saying that, and that makes it not insane.
Man, that is such a accurate description of addiction, right? I don't know if any of you have dealt with addiction or been to a 12-step program or just have done any type of work on yourself through your addiction, but that is such a accurate depiction of addiction. This is insane. Wait, if it was insane, I wouldn't be able to point it out. Because I have a grasp of and the understanding of the fact that this is crazy means that I'm making a choice to do it, which means that I am actually not out of control because I'm obviously telling myself that this is something that I'm willing to do and I'm going to do. So you know what? It's actually fine. That's crazy. There is a lack of control that you have with the things that you are that you are compelled to do when it comes to being in addiction. You know what I'm saying? And we'll do all the mental gymnastics in the world to tell ourselves that it's a choice that we're making,
I said, I'm sane, and I'm looking at a severed... I said, well, wait a minute. I see old paintings and drawings of Viking heroes talking to severed heads and taking them to parties, old enemies in leather bags. Part of our heritage. This is me back then in 1972 and 73. Unable to live with the fact that I just stabbed to death and cut the throat of an innocent young woman. Innocent in the sense that she did not plan on that happening. She didn't do anything specifically for that to happen to her. Yet she was a very active participant in her own death. And in my memory of that, she was 19 years old, and her roommate in the trunk who died right after that was 18. I didn't go hog wild and totally limp. What I'm saying is I found myself doing things in an attempt to make things fit together inside. I was doing sexual probings and things. I mean, in the sense of striking out and reaching out and grabbing and pulling to me, but appalled at the sense that it wasn't working. That isn't the way it's supposed to be. It isn't the way I want it. See what I'm saying? And yet during that time, I become engaged to someone who's young and is beautiful and very much the same advantages and very much the same upbringing and Disneyland values. And she's very much the reason I surrendered. I picked up two girls who were so much like the first two, it was unbelievable. Almost identical circumstances. And I let them go. Everything went towards killing them, and I didn't. But I'm saying, wow, it's uncanny. It was almost like it was meant to be that way. And I said, wow, this got to stop. And I let them out. They never even knew what was going on. I let them out. I would have gotten away with those two being murdered. I said, no, it's got to stop. And a week later, I murdered my mother. Went back to Santa Cruz and killed her.
He killed her with a hammer in her sleep, cut off her head and hands, but then put her vocal cords in the garbage disposal and threw darts at her severed head.
I am an American, and I killed Americans. I am a human being, and I killed human beings. And I did it in my society.
I've watched one other interview of his, and this one was by far like just it like just reaches deep into your like soul. It's so, oh my God, it's so intense. It's so intense. Just how much delusion he had to have lived in to like, and still does. You can still tell that there's like a God complex going there. Like he's just like, I know that, I had control over all of this, and I only stopped because I wanted to stop and I needed to stop, and I told myself to, and they weren't going to catch me. I would have got away with it. Like he's still very much like, I am smarter than all of this. I would have got away. Like, obviously he could have gotten away with it for a long time, but nobody gets away with anything forever, right? Especially as, he would have started to get more sloppy over time and trying, more daring things. But you could tell that he's just up there like, oh, I am just the shit, Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed that video, then leave a like, comment if this is something that interests you, if I should maybe take looks at other, interviews of different people, and we can just go from there. Anyways, I'm gonna leave it at that. See you in the next one.